Hey everybody, happy Thanksgiving. I'm Adrian. This is the Ender 3 and you're watching Reviewed. Welcome back. If you're actually watching this on Thanksgiving, then you probably have family in town. Don't worry, we can avoid them a little bit longer. We'll go over some of the upgrades I've done to my Ender 3 here. So there were 4 upgrades that I did to my Ender 3 pretty much immediately, and they were to address issues or prevent issues. The first was the Borosilicate Glass that I got from Gulf Coast Robotics. It's a 4mm thick borosilicate glass, and I did this because the build plate on my Ender was really warped. It was warped really bad. It's really low in the middle, and so I was having a really hard time leveling the bed. I could get, you know, each of the 4 corners level, or I could get the middle level, which was fine for a small model, but for something bigger I had to kind of shift it around. I was just having a really tough time, so I ordered the glass, and it's been much easier to print since then. So the next upgrade that I did was the Microsd extension, which you can't see now because it's inside this case here, but I did that because the micro USB connectors on the Creality machines sometimes are pretty delicate, and just putting the micro SD card in and out sometimes will wear them out or break them. So I did that. There is a cable protector down here under the bed. I put that in because even after about 4 hours of printing, it's actually, the cables go through a cutout in the 2040 extrusion down here, and it has a sharp edge on it, and so the cables, even after about 4 hours of printing, were starting to rub and chafe, and I could tell it was going to cut through the insulation pretty quick. So I printed that and installed it. And then the last one was actually the fan guard here, just because I really didn't want to drop anything into the PSU, or sorry, into the control box. This is the PSU, into the control box. So those were the first 4 that I did. They were actually printed on the Ender 3. All of the upgrades I've done to it have been printed on the Ender 3, with the exception of this Microsd extension cover. That was printed on the CR10 Mini, and that was only because the Ender had a long print on it at the time, and I wanted to go ahead and get it printed and done. So with those 4, I was able to print everything else, and what you'll notice with mine is that really none of these prints are to help with the quality of the prints that I was getting off of this Ender 3, because the quality of the prints was excellent. I did add this little fan shroud here just to help direct the airflow a little bit better, but that's really the only print quality related upgrade that I did. So we had this version here. This was actually for the CR10, and it wouldn't fit on the Ender 3. It was actually touching the bottom of the heat block. It was right up against it to the point it was actually melting a little bit, so I modified this one. I added 1.2 millimeters of height to it, and then that fits really well now. So we had that. We have the rear cover that goes over the LCD display here. We have the all-important beep silencer, which that one is very important. I seem to always start prints late at night, and so the beep cover was definitely a good improvement for me. It quiets it down quite a bit. So we had that. We have the Psu Support Bracket here, and this was a good upgrade. My Ender 3 is one of the really early ones, and so it has the 3D printed cover for the bottom of the PSU, and it just wasn't real sturdy, and so I printed this. That fit pretty well. I had to do just a little bit of sanding to get it to fit in there. So I also did, as I mentioned earlier, this Microsd extension cover here, just because I hate having the Microsd extension hanging out there. I did also have to edit this file. The original was actually just too short, and the end of the Microsd was bumping up against it to the point that if I push this in, it would actually push in the extension and eject it. And so I added 4 millimeters right in here just to make it a little bit deeper, and so now it fits fine. I will upload this to Thingiverse as a remix, and that probably just depends on which Microsd extension that you have, because no one else seemed to have complained about this problem. So it's probably just the one that I bought is probably just longer than some of the other ones. this one I would upload this as a remix, but the original author of this does not want remixes uploaded, so it's really easy to modify though. Just on this piece right here, you just want to extend it by 1.2 millimeters is how much it was for me. We've also done this filament guide here, and it just pushes onto the bracket and has a piece of PTFE tubing just to help put it at the right angle. And I did have to trim this one as well because it was a little bit too long, and I like this one because the PLA over time will just eat through this extruder arm. If you have it coming straight down, it ends up eating through the top of it, and so this one just helps guide a little bit better in there. And the last thing that we have is the cable clips, and these are down in here, and it's really just to help clean up this LCD ribbon just so it's not dangling there. You know, just a little bit of cable management. It just looks a little bit cleaner. The rest of these cables for right now I've left. I had printed an anti-snag end cap for this extrusion here, and what it does is as the gantry goes up, it helps keep it from snagging on here, but honestly I have not had a problem with it snagging, and the piece that I printed just did not want to fit on here, and I tried sanding it, but there's little tabs and things, and I just didn't feel like trying to get it to fit, so I just left that off. That is actually all the upgrades I've done to my Ender 3. There are a few others that I'd kind of like to add, really the main just being a cover for this idler pulley here, just because I do tend to catch my beard in these. But this being the early version, none of the ones I've found on Thingiverse fit, and I just, honestly, my Fusion 360 skills are not good enough yet to design one for it. Hopefully eventually. But really that's the only thing that to me is missing from my Ender 3. So it's a great printer. The print quality is really good. I did have an issue with the bed wheels and the gantry wheels. I must have just had a bad batch of wheels because when you moved it you could feel it skipping here. And they all looked fine, but I replaced them with CC Tree wheels that I got off of Amazon, and it fixed that. The bed, part of me originally having a really hard time leveling it was that when I popped the print off the bed, I noticed that the wheels would actually, the bearing inside the wheel was moving up and down. It wasn't seated in there very tight. And I contacted Creality and they wanted me to send them a picture of it, so I sent them a picture, which is really hard to do because you're talking about just a tiny little bit of movement under the bed. It was really hard to get a photo. I sent them that, then they said, can you send us a video? And I just said, don't worry about it. It was cheap to just go ahead and replace them. It was less hassle. So I put all new bed wheels on here, and I haven't had any issues since. I haven't seen anyone else complaining about that, so this was probably just me getting a bad batch of wheels on my printer. Alright, so that is it. Really not much else to say. I mean, these are basic mods, nothing crazy, but to me it just kind of finished the printer the way that I wanted it, and right now I'm really happy with it. I've just been printing with it. One last thing I have run into is actually the Psu Fan. I need to replace that because it sounds horrible right now. The bearings are going out, and we'll see if it actually, and there you go. So it does quiet down once the fan is warmed up, but you can hear it. I mean, that's terrible. That sounds horrible. So, which is kind of another problem with Creality printers, is that the fans kind of suck. Oh well, you know, for the price point that you get the printers at, there's going to be some little issues here and there. The fans are cheap. I'll just replace it. One thing to note, this is a 24 volt, so make sure you get the right fan. Apparently some of the early ones did ship with a 12 volt fan, so that's one thing I'm going to have to just pull this apart just to make sure I got the 12 volt, but it looks like all the new ones were 24 volt, so just something to keep in mind. So that's it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully it gave you some ideas for your Ender 3. If you liked the video, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe, and happy printing.